find each one of their conversations. Each one was an hour long, and it's not just about like what's going on in the work in the city so much as it was about who they are as people. I think you can gather a lot of knowledge of how they think about the concerns that you may have or what's going on in the city. So I learned a lot about the individuals in our first 2 years doing this. I learned a lot about the individuals that I may have had preconceived notions before they came in, and then after they left, some of those individuals who I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm actually friends with now and speak to all the time. So like, I think these conversations are good. We always look at elected officials like they're not human or like they're not individuals, but really they're just people, just like you all who were brave enough to take that step. And so I think through those conversations you'll see that. So that's why these 7 are here and not some others. Um, as we go forward after this primary, we do plan to have another candidate conversation with those who got through the primary. If you don't know this, Merica does endorse folks. So if you know how we stand on the political issues and civic issues, civil issues in the city, our endorsement means a lot to us, obviously, to give out. So, I mean, just what I'm saying is we just don't give it to anybody, right? We need somebody that's going to be working along the same realm that we do in all of our journey that we're in the city. But we do endorse on the end of it. We have the primary coming up tomorrow, obviously. Probably some of you have already voted, but for those who haven't, make sure you get out there and get it done. Tell everybody when you leave here to get it done. As you can see, we have a third ward candidate. They don't have a primary. I think it's just King who is in that race with Adam. But the reason why we invited him here as well, obviously because he came on the candidate conversation. But secondary to that, he's a sitting. He is an incumbent right now. But also, I think anything that's going on in the city is important. I don't think we should leave anybody out of this process. And given the fact that the third ward didn't have a primary, it would kind of suck to only hear from them for 2 months, right? So it's good to get them in this process as we go along. For those who live in the third ward, and if you guys know me, that's kind of my neck of the woods. So everybody was invited to this conversation. Outside of that, you are at the Fledge. The Fledge has hosted Merica 20 to Life for the media because they get this wrong a lot. Merica 20 to Life is the ones doing this, just so we get that credit, given the fact that we're a media source. It seems that they like to try to keep that out. This is a part of our candidate conversation, and this is the end of that for the primary. So Merica 20 to Life is doing this, as you all can see. So without further ado, I'm going to send it off to the candidates to give their 5-minute introduction, and we'll start on this side and just hand it down.
First of all, I want to say thanks for having all of us. I think this is a critical conversation, and I think the election, not only tomorrow, but obviously subsequent election in November, critically important. So again, for providing the space, we certainly appreciate it. I see a lot of friends in the audience. I see a lot of partners in this work we do right here in Lansing in the audience, and so what an honor to be here. My name is Adam Hussein. I want to spend my time today spending a little bit less time talking about me and maybe a little bit more time talking about the work that we have tried to do in Southwest Lansing the last several years, but also the work that we know we must continue to execute in the years to come. When I took office and when we convened this team some 7 years ago, it was very clear, right? Southwest Lansing is a very proud, diverse, vibrant community. With that being said, historically, we have been pushed to the margins. I would say we've been undersupported, but frankly, we've been unsupported. And so this team that we really convened about 7 years ago really sat down and we started to take a look. What were the issues in Southwest Lansing that were keeping people from ascending, from advancing their station? And it was crystal clear. We started with our commercial corridors in our districts, right? Collectively as the backbone of our community. This is where economic investment, job creation occur. This is where wealth distribution occurs. This is where we foster and support entrepreneurship, and the list goes on. And so we started really intentionally advocating for our wards. For our corridors. A few things that we've done in the past few years is we actually advocated for, supported, and then actually assembled a corridor improvement authority for South MLK. We took a look at some of the critical properties throughout Southwest Lansing, blighted properties, properties that for a very long time have kind of rotted on the vine. And we not only took a look at some of the core issues with those particular properties, investment issues with those properties, negligence issues with those properties, but then we also worked to identify solutions. We have worked very closely with local developers. We've asked them to believe in Southwest Lansing, to invest in Southwest Lansing, and to frankly bring across the goal line what are some pretty difficult projects to bring across the goal line. projects really where we are looking, I'm thinking Pleasant Grove and Holmes. I'm thinking 3700 South Waverly. I'm thinking the Logan Square. But projects that really get after addressing some of the hierarchy of need issues that every person in Southwest Lansing faces when we talk about Ascension. We advocated for some of its carrot and some of its stick. We advocated for, supported, and actually put in place the city's first corridor enforcement officer that actually goes up and down our corridors, tries to educate, tries to encourage, and then also enforces. The list goes on. The other piece is we knew that when you look at Southwest Lansing, our recreational spaces, spaces that are strategically located throughout the community, places where we really build culture, we really advance community, same thing. Those things had deteriorated, they had been neglected, and so we got after that. We have literally brought new parks online. We have built playgrounds with our own hands. We have brought amenities such as disc golf courses into areas that were havens for really illicit activity. We have worked with the school district to take a look at some of, again, schools, right? So strategically placed in our community. And unfortunately, particularly as we've lost population, some of those properties and some of the amenities that are attached to those properties have deteriorated to a point that is absolutely unacceptable. So we began advocating to not only keep schools open, but to continue to invest in the green spaces that are attached, the amenities that are attached to those schools. One example, and I'm excited to share this tonight, the state did just approve, after a lot of advocacy and a lot of partnership with the school district, $500,000 in this latest state budget to actually not only redo the track at Hill, but also to add amenities and enhance that particular location. And then the other piece, obviously, are the neighborhoods, right? Nothing is more sacred to our people than their homes, than their neighbors, in those respective communities that really position throughout Southwest Lansing. So we did a lot. We have not only started new neighborhood associations, we've worked to kind of resuscitate, if you will, associations that have flatlined. We work to create an interconnectedness between those associations. We've actually brought on board neighborhood associations that are partnering with business associations to continue to advocate for Southwest Lansing and identify solutions for all of the issues that we've referenced here, and of course others. We have worked really, really hard to get after some of the issues with our housing stock, right? We have went after landlords that are disreputable, that are a lot of times absentee. We have fought for additional resources to make sure that our housing stock is affordable, appropriate, and safe. And ladies and gentlemen, the work continues. A lot of folks have asked me, Adam, why are you running for a third term? I will tell you that the work that we've done in Southwest Lansing has absolutely resulted in tangible fruit, if you will. May 21 to May 23, we actually, and again, historically, marginalized, historically pushed to the, and give me 10 seconds, pushed to the margins. Also one of the, really in the Tri-County region, one of the most unsafe places in the region. May 21 to 23, because of the work that we've been doing, we have actually been the safest ward in the city. With that being said, I think the violence that has erupted over the last week is an indicator that the work is not done. We have to double down on that work. We're going to continue to double down on that work, and we absolutely are going to continue to advance our community. Thank you.
Hello there, my name is Nicholas Zandy, and I am running for Lansing City Council at large. And I am mostly running because not only because the two incumbents are retiring this year, but also there needs to be new blood to address the new issues in, in the city of Lansing. Just this year right now, there have been over 600 properties that have been red tagged, many of which are run by landlords who have neglected their property year after year after year. We need to be better at enforcing laws in order to make sure that their property is inspected so that this situation doesn't expand even further than it already has. And also, right this year, the city charter is going to be on the ballot in November, and I support that to increase the number of wards from 4 to 8 and either decrease the number of at-large positions or just get rid of them entirely. Ironically enough, I'm actually running for them, so that's kind of a weird thing, but that just shows that I am a servant of the people, and I will put that over politics. as someone who's been in the city of Lansing for many, many years, it just pains me to see just how corrupt and complacent our city government has become, especially when it comes to our two most recent serving mayors, Bernero and Shore, just straight up being so corrupt that they have to put their dirty hands in endorsing a few candidates for council, something that Mayor Shore originally sworn off against, which is just mind-boggling as it is. That's what also really pains me, and also because he just ignores a lot of the people, a lot of the properties deteriorating, and also with the whole red tag issue, some of them didn't even have smoke alarms, and so because of that, there were people who died in those properties, many of whom were juveniles. I don't like to sugarcoat this, but it is something that's hard. So to turn this into a positive thing, I guess. I hope that we can better fund our neighborhoods so that we can not only revitalize our neighborhoods, but also bring back even more neighborhoods that have been sidelined over the years, including my own, so that we can hear the voices of communities that have had their voices taken away over not just the pandemic, but who have never had those neighborhoods associations in the first place, such as on the south side, which a lot of them don't really have those neighborhood associations. And so I want to see those neighborhoods being brought back, which is why I think our neighborhoods department, which is way underfunded, needs to have even more funding. And also, we need to also cut even more funds from the mayor's budget to make sure that we don't have much of his useless positions, and redistribute that to departments that have been historically underfunded. And I can tell you this, neighborhoods department is way underfunded, and so because of that, because there have been neighborhoods that have been lost over years, there needs to be some funding there. I could ramble on, but we should also consider that this whole position of deputy mayor position, which honestly just seems kind of useless, I believe it needs to be an actual position separately elected from the mayor, that presides over the city council and breaks ties whenever needed. Because we've got a lieutenant governor that does that, and we've also got a vice president who does that. So might as well do that for the city of Lansing. And we should also convert the city treasury and the city attorney's office from appointed positions to elected positions, so they can make decisions separate from the mayor without worrying about getting fired. Because I know there's been a bit of controversy with Jim Merica and the mayor's email incident. And so because of that, I believe that and that's one of the main reasons why I think the city charter should be open this year. And I hope that people vote for that, just as I hope people vote for me in tomorrow's primary. That's all I will say, and I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I am Ryan Cost. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Ryan Cost. I am the current First Ward council member. Jerry, thank you for opening the pledge up for us. Shake. Thanks, Shannon, as well. Mike and Erica, thank you for hosting this. And Adam, Nick, Jody, Trini, Farhan, and Mike for doing this tonight. This is so important. So a little bit about me. I started getting involved in my community heavily a few years ago, but I had always been involved in Lansing. My grandma was heavily involved in her neighborhood. She made me watch city council meetings. I really got a love for it then. And then when we moved to the east side, I took on a deep passion about the community. And then I saw things weren't getting done. And there was frustration. And I ran for the seat and I won. So I came in day one, laser focused on issues, housing, building back our neighborhoods, and working on our parks. I think that that encompasses a lot of topics, but those are the three things I worked on immediately. I went toe to toe with landlords. I continue to go toe to toe with landlords. I am staying on top of the housing issues that we're having currently in Lansing. At 5 p.m. today, it was 606 red tags, which means we're down 150 from when I started January 1st, which is a big deal. And those aren't houses that are demolished. Those are houses that passed inspection and are safe for folks to live in. It's not a perfect system. We're not anywhere close to being perfect, but we're hitting it hard. Our park system, when I came into office, needed a lot of TLC in some of our parks that had not gotten attention. I have worked with Brett, the parks director, to secure, excuse me, to secure new things within our parks, play structures, signs. We got a dock in at a park that was not utilized at all on the north end, and we got it stocked with fish. And now on Sundays, you can see 7 cars deep out there with families that are enjoying this lake that we have in the north that no one knows about. I am working with almost every city department that there is to get things done, public service, making sure that if we have roads that are in terrible condition, that he's here, the public service director, Andy Kilpatrick, is hearing from me every week. This road is bad. This road is bad. Because we have to get stuff fixed, because it's not about me. It's about us. That's why I ran, because I don't lead from the front. I lead as equals with people that voted for me or didn't vote for me in this ward next to me. That's the only way I know how to lead, is as equals with the community. I don't think I'm any better or any worse than anyone in this community. I love this community. We have, in my opinion, some of the best people in the first ward. And we have some incredible spaces like Old Town, Frandor, no offense to the third ward, in Rio Town. And I want to continue to see our small businesses thrive. I stay in constant communication with the small business owners that we have in those areas. And any issues that they've had, I've gone through all the way to the end to make sure that it's corrected on some of these issues. I have been laser focused on doing my job for the citizens. That's why you elected me. And with that honor again in November, I will continue to work just as hard for everyone. Whether you voted for me or not, it doesn't matter. We are one city at the end of the day, not multiple cities. I don't need the rest of my time. Thanks.
Sorry, I messed up the clock.
That's fine. Thank you. I'm Jody Washington, and I wrote my notes down so as not to ramble and bore you all to death. I will tell you that I have been elected to council twice. I represented the first ward, and I am so happy that we have such a great councilman representing this ward as we speak. Really good. I know council is an incredibly important job. They are over the budget, the city ordinances, the policies, zoning, development, constituent concerns, and much, much more. The job is time intensive and energy intensive. Because we are losing 2 veteran council members with years of experience, 50% of the next council could have barely a year and a half to no experience whatsoever. I found that concerning. So I decided to run because I can hit the ground running. I didn't disappear when I lost my last election. Currently, I am chair of the Recovery Living Program of Endeavor House. I am on the executive board of the Ingham Community Health Centers Board. I am on the board of the Human Relations and Community Services for the City of Lansing, and I work daily with the homeless and the other agencies that work with the homeless. I am also a member of the Southwest Action Group and Friends of Bancroft Park. In the past, I was on the executive board of the Eastside Neighborhood Organization. I created and served on the executive board for the East Village Condo Association, which is now a thriving community. I was on the executive board of the Colonial Townhouse Cooperative and was the lead in keeping it affordable housing. I also served on the Lansing for Cesar A. Chavez board and was a fire commissioner for the Lansing Fire Department. At this time, I will tell you my primary issues are the financial health of the city. We are spending more money than we are taking in. We cannot continue that trajectory. It is not a matter of if the economy will take a downturn. It's a matter of when. We are building buildings and buying equipment, and we have no plan for the maintenance of any of it. We will be in sore straits in about 8 to 10 years. We need to use critical thinking and plan for tomorrow, because tomorrow will come. And our city is on fire. We are losing people and they are dying to gun violence. We can no longer sit back and continue what we are doing. It is time for the city to turn much of the leverage to the community groups that have boots on the ground. The city can't do it, the police can't do it, and the schools can't do it. These groups, I would hope, would organize, come up with a strategy that includes them all, and the city must provide ordinances and policies to support the community strategy. With the proper city liaisons, this can be done. All entities would then have a point place to get information regarding what is brewing, strategize, and then could mitigate some of the violence. I make no apologies. I am 100% union. I think it is imperative that developers that are coming in to profit off our city use local union labor and local labor with prevailing wage when union is not available whenever possible. I supported unions long before I ever ran for council. You want to build workforce housing in Lansing? Well, then use our workforce. I will join forces with the council members that are already leading the effects regarding the red tags and ensuring there are tools for holding property owners responsible for their deteriorating properties. All people deserve a clean, safe place to live. I will also commit to addressing exclusionary zoning in our region, which is nothing more than modern day redlining and is not good for Lansing. Our infrastructure is critical. Our roads and sidewalks must become a priority. This affects everyone, but particularly our elderly, disabled, and those that use mobility devices. They should have the same rights to traverse their neighborhoods in our city as everyone else. Economic development needs to be citywide. Most people on the south and west side have nowhere to dine, nowhere to shop, and nowhere for entertainment. They must take their dollars out of their area. So just very quickly, I know my time is coming up. I will just say some of the things I have done is I am responsible for the ad hoc committee on homelessness. I am the council person that got St. Petersburg, Russia removed as a sister city due to their atrocities to the LGBTQ community. I am the council person that was the city force that worked with the Latino community to finally get a street named for Cesar Chavez. I am the council person that is responsible for the renaming of Lansing City Council chambers to the Tony Benavides Council chambers to honor our only minority mayor that dedicated his life to Lansing. And I am the council person that worked with the Ingham Community Health Centers Board before I was on it and Linda Vale to rewrite the drug paraphernalia ordinance so we could have a lawful needle exchange in Lansing. And Carol Wood and I started the first diversity committee in Lansing. I spent years growing into this position. I will serve this city the rest of my life. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Trini Lopez Pelivanoglu. I know it's a really long last name. It's pronounced Pelivanoglu. And I am running for Lansing City Council at large. I do want to thank the Fledge and Merica 20 to Life for hosting us all here tonight. I think it's really important to connect with residents as much as possible, whether it's knocking on doors or engaging with groups such as Merica 20 to Life, any grassroots organizations where you can really have a good chance to meet the residents where they are and learn about their concerns, their issues, and answer any questions that you all have for us. So thank you so much for being here tonight. So who am I? Again, my name is Trini. I was raised in Lansing. I am happy to say I'm a proud graduate of Everett High School. My husband and I, go Vikings. We actually have two sons who are also graduates of Everett High School. So We've been raising our family, our blended family of 4 children on Lansing's southwest side, not far from where I grew up. I grew up just off of Pleasant Grove Road in South Lansing. Went through Lansing schools my whole life. Professionally, I can tell you that for close to 20 years, I have been working for local governments in their offices, 30th Circuit Court, the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office, and for the state of Michigan. I have worked for the Michigan Department of Attorney General, and I currently work for licensing and regulatory affairs. I will say during my time at the Attorney General's office, I worked very hard, dedicated myself to my work, and served as executive assistant to Attorney General Nessel during her first year in office as she was transitioning into her role. I was very happy to have that position, very proud of where I was working, and it gave me such a good insight and a good window into decision making, conversations, organization from top to bottom in one of the top elected offices in the state of Michigan. Now in my role at Lara, I work in continuous improvement, where I work with our workforce internally. I also engage with members of the public so that we can address any issues within our own internal working systems for licensing and regulation. We create packages that include the customer experience as well as the employee experience. We use voices at every level to identify the root causes of issues and then come up with short-term, mid-term, and long-term solutions strategically planned, and then go ahead and make sure that we are accounting for all of these changes that occur over time. That is my specialty, and that's what I do in my day job today. Within the community, I can tell you that since my oldest son entered school, that's when my community service really started. I got involved with his schools. It started with going to the PTA, getting involved, getting to know his teachers, the principals, and that snowballs over time. So I have volunteered my time within the schools at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. I have been a board member on the Cristo Rey Community Center board for over 5 years now. I'm active in Cristo Rey Church. I'm a secretary of the Southwest Action Group. I am a member of the Mid-Michigan Latino Leadership Network, and more recently, I have been appointed as the third ward representative for the Lansing Board of Ethics. So that being said, for my professional and community work, I think that over the last 2 decades, I've worked really hard to get involved where I can, as I can. As these positions became available for city council, I felt it was a really good time to put my decades of experience working right here in the community in government offices, providing that highest level of service that I can, while working within the parameters of a government office. It's nuanced. You have to balance the needs of the residents and help them to the best of your ability while also adhering to the rules that are placed in front of you. I've had almost 20 years of experience doing that. I'm eager to get to work on city council if elected. Aside from that, I will say that when we talk about platforms, I think we all have different points that we've laid out. Some of them are very similar. Of course, we need to work on safety issues within the city, neighborhood safety. I think that neighborhood safety doesn't only include crime prevention and reduction. I think it also includes having clean, safe parks for our kids to play in, for us to enjoy as a community. It also includes better roads and sidewalks. It also includes making sure that we can enjoy our neighborhoods, walk down the street, we can, go out with our kids without the fear of, gunshots in the distance. I'm in favor of what the city is currently doing, working with Advanced Peace. I would like to make sure that they have funding to continue their mission further than the next year or two that they currently have funding for. I would love to work toward additional funding so that we can really invest in our youth in the city and make sure that we're giving them the attention and resources that they need. Economic development, I know we've all so far talked about this. My time is up. Economic development in order to fund some of these very important causes that we're all working toward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Farhan Sheikh Omar. I want to thank, first and foremost, I want to thank Jerry and Shannon for opening up the pledge for us to be here tonight. I want to thank Merica 20 Life, especially Erica and Mike. Thank you guys. This election is one of the most crucial and most important elections in the history of our city. There's a lot at stake in this election. As we speak tonight, we have families who are facing eviction letter. We have people who are living out onto the streets. We have people who are being harmed in this city. Like many of you, I love this city, but I'm also worried about the direction that we're on, the path that we're on. I came here 18 years ago as a refugee. I was so in love with this community, the way it welcomed us, the way it opened its arms and its heart. That's why I believe Lansing is and will always be a city of hope and possibilities. My story is only possible here in this country, in this city, nowhere else. There's a lot at stake in this election. The problems that every candidate has talked about tonight did not start last night. It didn't start last year. It's been going on for decades. Our city has remained stagnant for the 18 years that I've been here. And I know for a fact some of you guys have been here longer than that. So it has remained the same. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. The same policies, failed experiences, failed leadership. We have people dying in this city. What are our elected officials doing? Nothing. 5 people got shot at Logan Square. That's a mass shooting. You didn't hear from the mayor. You didn't hear from council. Because they want us to be numb. Literally, they want us to be numb. We hear about these shootings. We say, okay, it's just another shooting. Oh, it's not a fatality. Nobody died. They survived. That is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for our kids to be dying. We have an opportunity to turn the page and elect people who love this city, who want to bring new leadership, new vision, who are not scared of challenging the status quo, who's not afraid of shaking things. Every candidate, most of the candidates here tonight have accepted donations from big corporations in this, from big corporate developers in this city. $5,000 checks with strings attached. $5,000 for what? Ask yourself. Ask them. $5,000 checks with strings attached. I am the only candidate that is self-funding my campaign because I know for a fact when I get elected, I'm going to work for you. I'm not going to answer to no developer, no corporate, none of that. And that's what we need. We need people who care about the city, who's going to prioritize the citizens of this city. Our community has been neglected. Our citizens have been neglected. America is a first world country. Our citizens are being treated as third world citizens. I know what that feels like because I was born in a third world country. It's a shame what's going on in the city. We have become numb, literally numb, and enough is enough. Enough is enough. If you want people who are going to hold landlords, slum landlords accountable in this community, vote for me. If you want someone who's going to bring programs for our youth so they're not being killed in this community, so there are programs are being funded, vote for me. If you want a new leadership, a new vision, somebody who's not afraid of challenging the status quo, the people who run this city, vote for me. But if you want the same BS happening in this community to continue, and if you want kids dying in this community, and if you want people living in red tag properties, if you want a toddler to die in this city like it did last year, then go ahead. Vote for the people who are being funded by these big developers and these big corporations. We got to do better. We got to do better. Lansing is better than this. It really is. I don't need notes. I speak from the heart because I love this city. I'm invested in this community, and I'm committed. And I ask for your vote tomorrow. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Vandegucci. I am running for Lansing City Council Ward 1, and I also have the second longest last name on the ballot, which I can't say very often in my experience in life. So really, I've lived in Lansing for the past 10 years, 6 of which have been in Ward 1 with my fiance. And really my platform stands on 3 things. I just look at it at a different lens. So economy, public safety, and mental health, right? So with economy being one of my first things, I want to protect small businesses. As a couple people have mentioned here, Ward 1 arguably is one of the biggest business districts in Lansing. We've got Rio Town, we've got Old Town, we've got the Michigan Ave Strip, we got Frandor, we got parts of MLK. And so, when you think about that, and you think about ensuring that the infrastructure around those high traffic areas should be pristine, because pretty sells. We should make sure that any empty spaces, retail spaces that we have in this ward and in this city are filled, because there's plenty of people that have really good ideas, and there should always be that opportunity for them. And any business that we can get working with us is, at the end of the day, going to give us more profit so that we can get a lot of the things that everyone talks about here done, right? We need money to do these things. And so that's why business is first for me. It's not because I'm some big corporate bigwig or I think anything. I worked for Meyer. I worked for Sparrow before that. I'm just a normal guy like anyone else. It's because I can see the profit potential of this city. And we really need that right now, because the money's going to set you free. So with public safety, one of my biggest things that I've kept saying is fix the small things and the big things will fix themselves, right? We tend to ignore small things to put all of our efforts in the top 10% of the issues that this city experiences. And that's not how you run a business. That's not how you run your house. Can you clean 10% of your house and call it clean at the end of the day? That's not how it works. So we need to make sure that we're putting our focus on the entire area, getting back to community policing, making sure that people feel safe in this city. And finally, with mental health, I firsthand experienced people going through severe mental health crisis, especially at Sparrow. And I know how tough that is. And I know how tough the transition from leaving care to going back to normal life is. And I really think that we need to start thinking about programs that are going to assist those people, that are going to help them get back to normal life and not feel ostracized by everyone around them, not feel like they have to go to the street or that they have to continue to seek care, because there's a lot of options for them, but sometimes you just need a little bit of help. You need someone under you as a stepping stool so you can get to that high shelf. And I want to make sure that they have that ability. Honestly, that's really all I have to say. I just look at it from a different lens, and that's why I'm running for City Council Ward 1. And I really hope you can see my point of view and you vote for me tomorrow. I relinquish the rest of my time.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate all you all. That was great introductions. I do want to give an opportunity, because this is not a debate, so I have to give opportunity for people to clear a couple things up. And 2 things were said. And I think they're generalized, but I know, Jody, you were going back and forth for a second, so I'll give you just 2 seconds to say what you said to him directly. And then secondary to that is that when the gun violence did pop out, I do have to celebrate those who did speak. And Adam spoke out real strongly on that, so much so that we got a response from all the folks that he talked about. So I do have to state that. And then you said something about your funding.
I just want to let Farhan know I am self-funded. I took no money from the chamber. I took no money from any other corporation. I didn't ask for chamber's endorsement. I didn't get it, and I took no money. Okay, and I think there's others also.
Yeah, if anybody else, raise your hand if you didn't take any funding, I guess. There you go. All right, perfect. Yeah. So anyways, outside of that, yes, congratulations to that. Some city issues before we open this up for the town hall aspect of this, and you guys can ask questions. I want to talk on a couple of things that we know are just widely open. So we've heard public safety, we've heard parks, we've heard roads, we've heard financial status, and all of that good stuff. And if you watch Merica and you keep up with it, we've gone into depth on all these issues. I think we heard Nicholas Zandy speaking on the fact that the mayor tried to buy 2 of these seats up here. There's a whole ethics thing going on right now with that. So we really are in shambles from an administrative standpoint. Our council over the last, I'd say, year or so has really started to listen to the voice of the people. I think a year ago, almost to the day, we were in this room building what's called the People's Council of Lansing in order to kind of combat what wasn't happening down there. And I think that the wave from that and seeing the community come together and having some real productive conversations with those on council that were willing to speak about that kind of moved this thing forward, with them being in the position they are now where they're really speaking out. But outside of that, though, like we had 2 new people join the council, and Ryan Cost and Jeffrey Brown, who I think changed the dynamic of that we had there prior. So I just say that, you know, with everything going on, I think our council has been moving in a good direction. There's a lot more work to do, obviously, but now we're going to lose 2 veterans on that council, right? It's going to change the whole game. And if you don't know, it's the reason why they vote in, or they have an election every 2 years as opposed to like every council member coming up at once, because you could imagine like a whole wave of brand new council members and an administration who knows how to you know, slide that thing under the door while they're breaking a window over here, right? And so if they're not willing to catch it, or don't know to catch it, or know the charter the way they should, a lot of things can get passed. And even when we have a veteran council, a lot of things have gotten passed. So a couple things I wanted to just talk about before we get into the questions is obviously our gun violence issue in the city is crazy. The mayor and the city came out with a press conference today to talk about all the things they are doing. And the one thing that I want to say is that although from their position they're doing a lot, they can, you know, they're doing some things that we would expect the city to do. It is the mayor's job. It is the chief's job to keep the city safe. That's their job. That's what they get paid for. Some of you all who may work at Myers Warehouse, your job may be to manage folks, or whatever the case is. That's their actual job, though. So when they say that, it's not like we're clapping you for doing your job. That's what you're supposed to do. If things are negative in the city and you're not doing a good job, then we look to replace, right? That's kind of the idea. You can try as hard as you want to and just not be capable. Sometimes we have to remember that when we're talking about these things. Some of the responses they talked about was advanced peace. That was talked about heavily. If you guys don't know, I was involved with the bringing of advanced peace here. Did a lot of talking to council about funding that. You know, was kind of just met with a brick wall in the beginning of that, and we kind of forced that action, and now it's here. But advanced peace has been here for maybe 4 months active. So we're not going to act like as if that's the answer to these things. And I think when it's thrown out in the press like that, for people who don't know any better, there's a lot more that can be done other than just advanced peace. When we talk about organizations, there's a lot more organizations that could be involved in this conversation outside of just the ones that we accept or the ones that we're funding currently. So the advanced peace and the gun violence, great, but there's so much more that needs to be done. There was also a press release that was put out a week ago, again, after Adam had spoke on the lack of response to the gun violence, where it sounded like they just kind of threw their hands up. I don't know what to do. The city attorney came out, or not the city attorney, but the county attorney came out and said, well, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to send them all to prison. And that's just not the response that we want to have, right? So these are the things that we would love our city council to be speaking on in a way that is speaking for us. Our voices are only so wide. Our influence is only so wide. So I've really been pressing council to have a voice, you know, that's one that's opposite of the administration. So with gun violence, we have that. With housing, obviously, there's a lot of groups working on housing issues. We know that we just got in the news. They're building a 24-story building downtown that's going to be an amazing setup for that. You know, people are like, oh, that's going to be amazing and great. And I'm not saying it is bad, but we have to learn to do both. You know, we can do that thing, and then we can build housing for people who can't afford to live there. And so I think that's an aspect that we have. We have a lack of housing right now in the city of Lansing. Building a 450 unit, whatever the heck it is downtown, that's $1,200 for a studio is not going to fix that. The idea that it could fix that, because then people who are affording houses on the south side will move into that and open up housing rental down there. You know, whatever the idea they have of this trickle down effect, that's a concern that I'd like council to take into consideration for me personally. So all of that being stated, roads, sidewalks, parks, all of that good stuff are all issues that people have brought to us as advocates, but also we've heard this stuff on the show. We've heard multiple council members speak to it. The finances in our city are really poor. We just passed another budget that's really just not cutting it. If any person was to run their budget the way our city is, we'd be broke. Our credit score would be terrible. The propaganda that gets spit at us every day is terrible. And I think that council is uniquely seated to be a voice of reasoning, a voice of the people. So that's why these elections are so important. And I think that as we move forward in all these conversations about all of these different things, what I look for anyways is people who are willing to stand up to those things. Whatever your platform is, if you can be somebody that can be maneuvered or shamed into speaking out, that's concerning to me. So I think everybody here spoke to the fact that they can't wait to get into the seat and do that, just that. So applaud all them for that process. Yeah, for sure. So I thank them out. Thank you guys all for coming on the show. I know that when Merica 20 to Life is brought up, everybody's like, oh, they're gonna they're gonna like put us on the spot. And it hasn't happened yet, but everybody's all concerned about it because of the, again, the propaganda that gets spat. But I appreciate you because I know it took Will and it took some bravery to come sit in that hot seat for an hour-long live session that you can make the huge mistake that just rattles throughout the city. Nobody did. None of that happened. I think a lot of people learned you guys better. This 5 minutes, they just learned you all better. So now we'll give anybody an opportunity to come up to the mic if you'd like to ask a question of any of the council members up here or them as a group. Come on up. Just come on up to the mic. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so if it's possible that you can come up. If you don't want to, you can fill out the paper. Oh, there, we lost that mic.
My name's Merica. Question. What's that? Direction. Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. In some countries where you see gun violence isn't as bad, they require, and I'm curious as to what each of you would do, and if you would support this, mental health evaluations before by fire. And it seems to kind of work in other countries. Something you would support here. That's number one. And then number two, it seems like every time the news pops up, as diverse of a city as we are, see a lot of young African Americans being arrested and being thrown in jail. Girls Club to help African Americans and these young kids who are just ending up in jail for the rest of their lives, shooting each other. And we're such a diverse city, I kind of feel like that's a serious, not to say that all crime is caused by African Americans, but it's a serious issue. And it sucks that all these young men are thrown in jail for however long. What would you do about so that two-part question there?
The first part was whether or not, so the first part of the question was whether or not you guys would support mental health checks for people to go buy a gun. I don't know if that's in y'all purview, but so I don't know if we even asked that question. I don't think that's council's purview to be able to affect changing that, whether or not they'd support it. I guess if you would support something like that, put your hand up. Okay. So everybody said they would support something like that from the legislature. Outside of that, the question was for the whole, what else outside of, I think what else outside of just the Boys and Girls Club type stuff would you guys think that they could do for young men that are involved in violence?
Yeah, Phil, I really appreciate the question. What's interesting, when we talk about public safety in the city of Lansing, we talk about 3 points, right? We talk about prevention, we talk about interruption, we certainly talk about enforcement. When we talk about the 3 strands, let's talk about prevention, because I think that's what you're talking to. You'll have bureaucrat after bureaucrat after bureaucrat go up to the podium and they speak to the public safety issues. And frankly, they don't understand the public safety issues because they've never lived in it. They never had to persist and exist in that. They didn't have to ascend from that. And so it always pains me as I hear somebody as an example. I think it was said today, as a matter of fact, we're gonna do more recreational programming. The reality is there's not one fail-safe solution. And even speaking to the gun piece, we have to first on city council, we need to leverage our platform, which we've been trying to do, but to advocate to our county partners, to our state partners, to our federal partners, because certainly we need to do a couple things that maybe not within our purview. As an example, we have to attack the mental health crisis head on, right? No question. We have to take a look at common sense gun reform. Some of those things have happened at the state legislative level, as an example. There are some things coming down the pipeline with regards to the federal government. But frankly, we need more without infringing upon people's Second Amendment right? We need educational and we need job training opportunities. And frankly, a lot of times we discuss those things, but then the question is, as you pivot somebody from whatever path they're on, and then you put them on this additional path, right? This path to success. Then the question becomes, what does your community look like? Have you immersed people in opportunity and really gotten your community to the point where people are running away from the opportunity, right? So once we, as an example, address some of the hierarchy of needs, your housing, your public safety, your neighborhoods, things of that nature, is there opportunity for these people to walk into? So again, when we talk about job creation, right? When we talk about economic development along our corridors, when we talk about people have to be able to see that opportunity, to continue along that path, have to be able to access that opportunity. So again, there's not one fail-safe solution, and I certainly can't speak to the issue in 1 minute, but what I will tell you, Phil, is there are people running, there are people on council that understand it, and we're going to continue to proceed the path. Thank you.
I appreciate the question about gun violence. I mean, there's not exactly like one solution to an issue. For mental health backgrounds, I think that there definitely should be universal background checks for people who want to own a gun. Well, also, I think there should be also a minimum age for someone who can own a gun, like maybe 16 through 18 might be the most reasonable age range, because children should just not be owning guns. That is just a completely unreasonable thing to even think that children should be owning guns. I mean, I'm not going to like harp on people's constitutional rights, even though the Second Amendment specifically states that it protects state militias who own firearms, not necessarily individuals. So, but I do think that while, yes, there needs that people should have a right to own a gun, it should simply not be for people who are juveniles and are extremely young, because I'm just going to say it. Children, again, should just not be owning guns. And for people who say, oh, we should have more mental health programs to resolve this issue, I mean, a lot of this comes from the GOP, who's actually done more efforts to cut back several social and mental health programs like Social Security and Medicare that would actually help those people in need. And it just boggles my mind. If they're going to talk about mental health, actually, maybe they should think back to when they actually cut a lot of those services. And it just, I know this is basically mostly a nationwide issue, but this is actually a very important thing. And we need to work with our state legislature in order to resolve this issue, because they're the ones who can resolve this issue, and they're the ones who should be talking about this issue along with the city council and work with them. So that's what I need to say about the issue, and I shall yield the rest of my time.
Phil, thanks for the question. Sunday, I was over on Maryland Avenue where we had a 14-year-old that some adults wanted his basketball. He wouldn't give it up, so they went and got a gun, and they shot up a house. I lived on that street for several years. My stepdad still lives there. I was worried about his safety and texting him. It was the house next to his. That's unacceptable. And I posted about it because I was pissed off, and I am pissed off. I'm tired of this happening. When that tragedy struck over at Logan Square, Adam texted me that night. I drove out there that night. This has got to end. I don't have all the answers to how it's going to end. I do know that Adam mentioned bureaucrats getting in the way. We have 2 studies right now that we found out still have funding from 2022 budget to find out where the racial inequalities are within the city and what we supposed to do moving forward, what is going to work best. Though one of them is being done right now, the other one has not been started. But that's going to be an important indicator, because it's very difficult for me as a white male to know what it feels like to be pulled over for being black. But we have community partners that understand that, and we need to listen to them. We need to, and I would beg the administration to listen to folks that know what they're doing. Michael's suggestions, with the Omaha 360, different initiatives. We got to do something different. We've got to listen to the people it's affecting.
Thank you. I want everybody to know I have a goiter. I'm not on the verge of crying. It's my vocal cords, okay? So I just want to thank you for the question, Phil. I will tell you, I raised my children in a mostly neighborhood of color. It was HUD housing, and the socioeconomic group was incredibly poor. Nothing has changed since those days, not the dynamics and not the solutions. My son and my godson witnessed their first murder in the neighborhood. We had 7 shootings in 1 year. And I'll tell you, it comes from lack of parents in the home who are stressed. They are young. They want a social life themselves. It comes from hopelessness. It comes from despair. It comes from lack of education, because education is not a top priority in their life. Typically, it's survival. And I will tell you, my 2 children are probably about the only kids that got out of that neighborhood with a college degree. We still see these folks every single week. They have done prison time. They are dead. They are homeless. Some of them have done okay, but we see the ones that are still living every week. It cannot be solved by privileged white men that have no idea what this culture is about, have no idea about the despair, the stress that the mothers are going through, that the children are going through. And it is a multi-pronged problem with a multi-pronged solution, but it must be community-driven, not government-driven by, like I said, privileged white men that want to lead the cause.
Great. Thank you for the question. We've had several candidates who have already said there is not just one solution to this issue. I certainly am not an expert on how to effectively go into a community. And I think the specific question was African American youth, what is out there for them aside from the Boys and Girls Club that will help reduce, gun violence and things like that. So programming, youth mentorship, not just the Boys and Girls Club, not just Advanced Peace, bring in as many entities as we can, because you have to recognize that every individual is different. We can't just group everyone into this group and say, young African-American kids, yes, statistic-wise, maybe you can, but they all have their own individual experiences in their own homes. Maybe one of them, has a single parent home. Maybe one of them doesn't have any parents. We don't know what that looks like. So definitely, I can only echo some of the sentiments that were already stated. Focus on mental health, focus on youth mentorship, do as much as we can as a community to uplift our youth. Also support common sense gun laws. I don't think that children own guns. I think they're getting guns that are already existing in their home. Not all of those guns are illegally purchased. Some of them are legally purchased. They're just not being locked up. They're getting access to them. There are a million different ways in this city that kids can get their hands on guns, unfortunately. So advocate for better gun laws that have common sense and approach this in a common sense way. Make sure that we are working in multiple ways to address this issue. Thank you.
As you guys might know, it's not shared for 2 minutes, so I think people want an extra minute. I'm sure you too. We'll give the people who did get to an extra minute.
Thank you, Phil, for that question. America has spent billions of dollars focusing on punishment rather than prevention. I mean, just look at our police. They have tanks, they have machine guns, they have everything that normally is meant for our military to have. And so we have gone far away from investing in prevention. Having a police department is very important. I get that. However, police only respond to crime. They don't prevent crime. That's why when a crime takes place, you call 911, they show up, they take a report. Sometimes they don't even catch the suspect, right? So what did we accomplish? Nothing. So it is time for us to bring the community together. And there's always been a disconnect between the police and the African American community. And that is because some of us simply don't trust them based on how they treat us. That's just the truth. There's no accountability in the United States when it comes to police departments. They're allowed to do whatever they want to African Americans. One guy was handcuffed and they released a canine dog on him. And so you see things like that, and then you start to wonder, why should we work with them? Why should we trust them? And so it's important that when you talk about programs for African American kids, that we bring their coaches, their mentors, people from their community, people who look like them to the table, and make sure that they're bringing their ideas and make sure we're implementing those ideas. Because a lot of times this city has gone and asked the African American community for ideas, recommendations, and it has never been implemented. And we're seeing the results of that. Thank you.
So I have surprisingly intimate knowledge about firearms. I actually sold them for 3 years at Gander Mountain before they closed down. And, with that knowledge, I was actually able to be certified as a gun safe candidate for Moms That Demand Action. So I did get that certification on Saturday. One of the biggest things when it comes to firearm violence is exactly what some people were saying, is that these firearms aren't always illegal, right? They are getting them from their home, that they were legally purchased, and there was just no gun lock. There was no way to keep people under the age of 18 getting to them. And I will tell you that there are a lot of, what do I want to call them? Just outreach and support entities that will actually come to your city and host a free gun lock giveaway. And they'll just give gun locks away to anyone that wants to come get them. Right? So there's an option right there, something you could do. As far as, the basically ostracization of African American young males, I mean, I feel like being one of the younger candidates up here, one of the biggest issues is, especially in our schools, we get lied to, right? And we say we have to go to college, and if you don't feel like you're going to really succeed in that atmosphere, you're going to end up rebelling in any way that you can. And that's not the fact anymore, right? I mean, we know now, especially me, trust me, in the age where I was being told that I had to go to college, I could have went and been a tradesman, and by this age, I could be a master plumber, master electrician, whatever, and I could be making way more money than I do right now. So I think that would be a really good option too, is reopening these trade schools, making sure that their mentors are with them and telling them that these are options that they can have, and they can be making a heck of a lot of money before they're even 30.
No, just really quickly, I want to say something. When I first decided to get into community advocacy, and I tried to advance, my neighbors and people in my community, I actually took a look at what the great equalizers were for me personally. And for me, it was public education and it was appropriate housing. Although I grew up in HUD housing, although I grew up in affordable housing, it was appropriate, it was safe, there were models of success everywhere around me. And so that was my early advocacy. What I learned by becoming a public school teacher, again, because I had access to great educational opportunities as a young person, I learned that other people's great equalizers weren't necessarily the same as mine. I was sending kids back into the community where they were, as an example, able to buy liquor and tobacco products and things of that nature from disreputable actors at corner stores and the like. There were individuals that didn't just go home as latchkey kids, but they went home literally without parents in the home, raising not only themselves but their siblings. We had individuals that latched onto the educational opportunities and the job training opportunities that we were providing, but then unfortunately, positioned in their community, there were really no opportunities to be onboarded into, as an example, an entry-level job. And so I appreciate everything I heard up here, because I think people understand intimately that there is no one fail-safe solution, that we have to build a community where we are supporting scaffolding, immersing people in opportunity, and that's before interruption and enforcement. Thank you.
I'll speak. So while I don't know if exactly like a minimum age for people owning a gun is the one size fits all solution. It's one solution, and also there needs to be locks sent out probably by the government or even a private entity to make sure that juveniles don't access them, so that youth violence doesn't increase like it did. And so also we need to, and also again, as I've said with the Republicans saying, oh, we need to focus on mental health. Again, they've cut back programs like Social Security and Medicare that would actually help in these situations, because I'm pretty sure Medicare and Social Security have dealt with mental health problems before. And so we need to probably work with the feds to expand those issues. Maybe get Medicare for all passed or something like that. Who knows?
So just because you asked the question, it's up my lane. Sorry, y'all, just 1 second. I can give you a response to what I believe we could do almost immediately. So first thing is, I think Jody hit on the head. Certain individuals should just not be a part of the conversation from a level of understanding. They should be a part of the conversation as a level of resource. So they should listen to what people are saying they need and then resource it. So that would be my thing. And then secondary to that, and just something everybody can leave, America has to educate. Not everybody can reach every child, but every child has somebody that can reach them, and we need to find that person. I think somebody touched on the coaches, so on and so forth. So I think once we get that concept of mind, and everybody has that, you'll find people in your inner circle that you can reach with this conversation. And that's how it feeds out. Like Jerry always says, 10,000 fledges. If everybody knew what I knew, we wouldn't have gun violence here. So just that being said. But next question. And thank you all for that.
All right. Thank you for coming and speak to the city today. My name is Marshall Clabeau. I'm speaking on behalf of the relationship with the Board of Water and Light that the city of Lansing has. Almost every day this summer, we've had an air quality alert from wildfire smokes from Canada. Air quality so bad that you're not even supposed to go outside. To truly have a healthy future, we need to reduce our emissions from fossil fuel energy. So here's an article dating back December 21, 2017. It's titled, BWL Plans $500 Million Power Plant, Scope and Timing Questioned. Further down in the article, there's a quote specifically from Dick Peffley. If you don't know who Dick Peffley is, he runs the show, has forever. Peffley said, it's 99% likely that the proposed plant will be the last baseload plant BWL will ever build. Just less than a month ago, BWL announced plans to build 2 new gas plants, potentially 3. We're talking about in a time when the world's on fire, solar is cheaper than it's ever been, battery technology is being deployed across the world, you have wind coming online everywhere the wind blows. It's time to invest in renewable energy, and BWL has been greenwashing the city for years. City Council has a unique responsibility for the municipal utility that BWL is. You got consumers and DTE that are monopolies that get all the bad press. BWL kind of skates by. Will you, as a council member, stand up to BWL and not support them building new gas plants in 2023? We're talking 2023, and they're still wanting to build new gas plants. There's state laws that say gas needs to come offline by 2035. So you're going to build this gas plant and in 12 years shut it offline? So a question again. As city council member, will you stand up to BWL and not supporting new gas plants?
So question is, would you guys stand up to BWL from your position of council and not support new building of gas plants? Is this for everybody?
Yeah. So
You're right. You did say that.
Great. Thanks for that information and the question. So I wasn't aware that they plan to build 2 more gas plants. I am aware that BWL has the strategic plan laid out where they're saying they're investing in renewable energy. There's a timeline. It's all on their website. I've been reading up on that quite a bit. It did include solar power from what I read. So the question is, I don't have enough information on that. I'm going to study up on it. I do think that we need to take steps toward environmental sustainability. I've actually received some questions that surprised me over the last several weeks. What can the city council do to improve our environment, improve our natural resources? And quite honestly, that's something that it was the first time I had been asked that. And so I really did take that to heart. I really did try to think about that some more. So I do want to thank you for the question. If it is going to be a detriment to our community and our environment overall, I would take a very strong look at that. I know that the council does have a unique relationship with BWL, and I would advocate for what is best for the community.
So the question was about the 2023 gas plant. Some background on this. The new battery plant that they are building right now out at Delta is going to take so much energy that they need immediately that's why they're building that gas station. At this point with that gas station, now I haven't heard of 3. I've heard of the 1, and that's due to necessity for a timeline on the new battery plant. I wouldn't stop that because we have to have that power, but we also have to keep Dick on his word that I've gotten several times in his office that we are actually moving towards green. I'll also add that you can use, I think it's 10% more, and you can use all renewables on your electric bill from BWL. But unfortunately, the technology for solar and wind is there. What's not there is the batteries to hold it. And we have to get better battery technology. And I know that Dick Peffley is always looking for renewables. And unfortunately, that gas plant, because of the new GM plant coming online, is going to be a necessary evil for the next few years. And I don't want to lie to you or tell you what you want to hear. That is just the reality of it. And I didn't know it until I educated myself how much energy something like that actually does eat up. It's an incredible amount of energy that they'll be using at that battery facility out at Delta River. Yeah, is it Delta River? Yeah. So that's my answer. And I know that it's not the most convenient answer, but it's the honest one.
Yeah, so I actually have my degree in fisheries and wildlife, and one of the classes that I had to take was renewable and restorative energy at MSU. One of the best ways right now, just like what Ryan was actually saying, with although the solar and the wind power is there, but the ability to take it, harness it, move it to where it needs to be is not right now, which I know there's a lot of places that are working on that, but we don't have it. And that's the unfortunate part. And I graduated in 2017 and we didn't have it back then either. But back then the panels themselves wouldn't have even really worked in Michigan because they would have only been about 55%. Okay. So, anyways, the fact of the matter is it comes down to, do you want energy and jobs or do you want to protect the earth right now? And I think right now for Lansing, the choice is energy and jobs. And we can come back and we can mitigate this other ways, right? We can have healthy trees. We can start green roof projects. We can continue to make sure that our green spaces are healthy, clean, and renewable. So that's the best thing I can say.
I don't need to look at BWL's policy because I know climate change is real. I mean, you see it on the news every single day, whether it's flooding, how hot it gets, the quality air that we have been experiencing the past month. And so, yes, I will stand up to BWL. It's just that simple. Also, when you talk about choosing between energy and jobs versus the earth, you are literally putting at risk the lives of other people. And so lives come before money or profit or jobs or any of that stuff. And so we have to do what's best for the earth, which means we're doing what's best for us. And also BWL literally is getting out of hand and we need to hold them accountable. and it's not just the climate that I'm talking about. These folks are just raising prices, and people are paying a lot of money for sometimes things that they didn't use. And so there needs to be accountability. There needs to be checks and balances. I understand BWL is the only place that provides water and everything, electricity around here, which causes the problem, because if they had competition, you know, it wouldn't be like this. And so, yes, I will stand up to BWL.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the question, and I certainly appreciate the responses thus far. And I agree with most of the responses thus far. We know right now that with regard to the BWL, they do have a plan in place. We vetted that plan. We've looked at that plan. We're working in earnest with the Board of Water and Light to make sure that within that plan, the objectives and the benchmarks that are in there to not only mitigate our carbon footprint, at least from this public utility, but also to reach carbon neutrality, that those are met. We do know that there are some issues with regards to, you know, we can't just flip the switch. Essentially, we have to have a bridge too. We know that. I think referenced among many was, you know, some mitigating factors such as battery technology. That being said, we do have a responsibility on the city council, again, to know what their plans are, to work in earnest with them, to make sure that those benchmarks are met, to make sure that we're vetting those individuals that are eventual commissioners, to make sure that those commissioners, right, are responsive to the needs of our community and to this earth. But we also need to look at our own backyard. We have a climate action plan that has three essentially short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals and objectives as well. And we need to make sure that we're well-versed. We need to make sure that we are holding folks accountable to actually putting that plan in place and executing that plan. We need to make sure we're funding that plan. We need to, in earnest, continue with the contract with Johnson & Johnson, ensure that every one of our facilities here in the city of Lansing is as energy efficient as possible, that our fleet is as energy efficient as possible. Among other things, we need to continue to fund our CSO project. We need to make sure that we are meeting that we're meeting essentially the pieces that are within that the consent agreement we have with the state to make sure that our waterways are clean. We absolutely need to take a look at a replacement when we're talking about our trees, right? A one-to-one replacement. There are a number of things that we can be doing and holding ourselves responsible while also working in earnest with the Board of Water and Light as they mitigate their carbon footprint, but also while they try to make energy still affordable and still reliable for the end user. Thank you.
So my opinion on the environment is one of the things that's just almost never changed about my stances. I mean, I may have changed my stances a few times, like maybe on public safety and stuff like that, but the environment, no amount of convincing from fossil fuel manufacturers or natural gas manufacturers like the Board of Water and Light can even convince me that we need to do something right now to stop climate change from destroying us as a species and our planet. And I know this whole thing, like jobs in the economy and stuff like that. To quote Leonard Nimoy, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. We need to do something to protect our planet, regardless of whether or not it hurts people's jobs or not. And to say this, about the Board of Water and Lights. I think it's a city-run corporation or something like that. I think with the whole city charter thing opening up this November, it should be converted to a full-on government department, something like the Lansing Department of Energy, in order to make sure there's more proper oversight over them so they don't keep hiding themselves from the city council and from the public. I'm not saying like the government is even more equipped to handle things, but leaving everything to the private sector to fix the environment and stuff like that, that's just almost not going to work. And there's a reason why ideas like anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism, I'd say it's not exactly a viable ideology. And so because of that, I think there needs to be full-on government oversight of our Board of Water and Light, and that yes, we should be standing up to them, especially when they do something absolutely corrupt, like building power stations when people haven't even asked for it. That's all I need to say, and I shall yield the rest of my time, however much there is.
I haven't always been deeply concerned with the environment, but I am now. I mean, I've always been concerned, but I'm critically concerned now. I run my house on solar. We put our money where our mouth is. I run my house on solar, and I have done my entire campaign on an electric scooter. So that's how committed I am to making sure that we take care of the environment. As far as the Board of Water and Light goes, it is probably our only socialized entity in the city. You own the Board of Water and Light. It is not owned by the city. It is not owned by a corporation. You own it. And as the owner, you have every right to go to every meeting, to decide who's going to be a commissioner by letting your voice be heard and letting them know what your concerns are. I'm the council person that in 17 wrote the resolution that I wanted to see 20% renewables by 2020. They did meet that benchmark. Now, as far as this gas plant with the batteries, we need the batteries. I mean, if we're talking about the environment, we need the batteries to run electric cars. There may be a small glitch where we have to have the gas plant for a while, but hopefully that will go away. I'm not aware of the other two. I will have to find out about that, but I will always be first and foremost to use solar, to use wind wherever possible. I know we don't have the battery capacity right now to hold it, but I also want to see sustainable farming. I want to see our water clean. I want to see corporations held responsible for the energy they use. I wanted the marijuana grows that use a ton of energy to go off solar. So there are so many things we can do and so many things we have to do. But like I said, I put my money where my mouth is. I'm deeply concerned and I will stay on top of it.
All right, thank you guys. Next.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for all your kind comments about the pledge. I want to cut right to the chase. As we talk about Boulder Water and Light, I want to substitute them with General Motors, who we don't own, but who seems to own us. I was born in Lansing in the 60s. I have a family that on my father's side goes back 8 generations, on my mother's side goes back 7 generations. My grandmother went to Lansing Eastern. My grandson's going to Lansing Eastern right now. Norris Grocery used to be on Olds Avenue, right where the General Motors plant is, and we were very proud of that as a family. But between General Motors going there, the Eckhart plant, 496, our educational system where you have to be one of 2 things, as you said, you either go to college or you work in the factory. We have sold our housing stock. We have sold our students. We have sold our environment. I remember people in Morris Park who used to get vouchers to go wash their cars to get the dust from the plant coming off from them. Will you stand up for General Motors in economic development, batteries, jobs, all this bullshit that they always promise us, but they leave these parking lots? One of the biggest gray areas in the country is in Lansing, Michigan right now. Will you stand up against that and fight for not these $10 to $12 to $15 an hour jobs, but really sell our city, sell our people as problem solvers, innovators, entrepreneurs that we are, and not just the guys hitting the side of cars with hammers? Because I'm sick of General Motors, and I'd like to know if you would stand against this big property in Eagle, even though it's not in Lansing. Are you going to do stuff like that? Do
So
you
I guess
understand the question? Will you turn down economic development if it will hurt our kids and our people and not bring these $515 jobs? We don't need the $15 an hour jobs anymore. We need to be able to live.
you guys got it? All right, Nick.
So, I've said this before about about certain things that are just completely useless to the community. I've said this about the planned self storage unit on the south side of Lansing where the old Sam's Club was, and how the many disparaging things they've said about the south side, on how just nobody shops there, when I mean there's Target and Meijer there. I mean, I'm pretty sure people do shop there. And second of all, yes, I do think sustainable jobs should be a thing. I mean, just to say this about what General Motors has been doing, I mean, the whole thing with the parking lot thing, we need to move into a world where we don't have to rely so much on cars. I mean, myself, as telling you myself, I don't drive. I mean, I'm kind of deathly afraid of driving because I'm afraid that I might crash it or something, or severely injure myself in doing so. And so because of that, I typically rely more on public transportation, the Catabus system. And for me, I think there should be free bus rides for everyone, because so that people can actually have better access to it, who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to ride on a Catabus. I mean, my dad actually rode a few buses in Montreal, which is Montreal. I think it's a suburb of Montreal. Don't correct me on that. But they had free bus rides there, and my dad was impressed with how free the bus rides were when he was able to go from the vacation house on a steep hill to his skiing trail on an even steeper hill. So it's honestly, I think, yes, we should focus on something that's more sustainable for us as well as the environment.
So, Jerry, the question was, can I stand up to economic development? Yes. Yes, I would. I'm tired of looking at the blights they leave behind. Fisher Body is so toxic that the only thing we can do is park cars that don't have chips on them. And $15 an hour jobs are not the kind of economic development I think Lansing needs. So yes, I would stand up to the developers, and I have no issue doing it. If it's a bad idea, not every idea that's presented that I have seen out there is a good idea. And it's not, and at the end of the day, it's not what I think is a good idea. It's what the people that voted for me or didn't vote for me, but the constituents, the folks that live in this city, what they think is a good idea. That's what matters to me. So that's it.
I hate to say it like this, but for every one person that's upset, there's another person that's very happy and has a pension with them, right? And they've basically survived off of that plant. So I agree with you in the fact that there's a lot of parking lots that are not being used by them, right? And there are definitely ways to mitigate that and to beautify them in some way, shape, or form if they are usable space and they're not too polluted or whatever. You'd have to do a whole land survey and everything to make sure that they were buildable even. We could definitely talk about utilizing that space, but I don't think really pointing the finger and being upset with them is the right choice. They've been a part of the city for many, many years, and there's a lot of people that still draw pensions from them because of it. So it's really more about just being able to sit down, have conversations, and then execute the will of what's right for the city, right? And sometimes what's right for the city isn't necessarily what makes everyone in this room happy. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
I would, and I will stand up against them for the simple fact that the $15 that they're offering is nothing compared to the harm that they're bringing to this community. It is time for us to have an identity in this city. We are the capital city of the state of Michigan. We get impressed by the littlest things, and it's not just General Motors. We have big developers that come to our city asking for tax incentives, tax breaks, and we get so excited because we want them to build these tall yellow buildings or orange buildings when the people that live here can't afford it. And so any economic development that comes to the city, if I'm on city council, it's no longer going to be what can Lansing do for them. It's going to be what they're going to do for us. And if it's not going to benefit us, it's a no. It's a hell no. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you for this question. My husband works for General Motors. He works on the assembly line. It is backbreaking work. He's lucky that he hired in over 20 years ago when the pay was much higher than $15 and $16 an hour. We're a proud union family. He's a member of the UAW, as was his father, who was also a career General Motors employee. I think that I don't know how it's been done in the past, right? We don't have all the answers sitting up here, especially when we're new to this. But I think that as the city moves forward in negotiating with General Motors, wouldn't it be great to say, build your battery plant when you clean up this parking lot? Can we build that into the package? I don't know if that's possible. I would like to see that happen in the future. Our unions need to be supported. They're going into contract negotiations this fall. My husband could be laid off for several months. He was in 2019, where we had to go down to a one-income household from a two-income household. That puts stressors on everyone in the community that relies on GM to live. And to be honest, the dollars don't stretch as far as they used to. So I think that it's advocating with the unions to build that wage back up. They do have new leadership, from what I understand, with the UAW. I hope they will bring the wage up so that people can not just have an adequate wage, but be able to thrive in their own right, be able to be a true middle class family the way it used to be 20 years ago or so. That's what I would advocate for, because the truth is that many of us in this community do depend on GM for our livelihoods, my family included. I'm proud that my husband works there. I'm proud that our family is affiliated with General Motors. My kids love that their dad built the car that we drive, and now they're moving toward EV, which does include more battery power. So if we can find a way to negotiate with GM, clean up the blight, get those wages raised, I would be in favor of that. But we do have to recognize that they are a part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to be honest, if it wasn't for GM, we would be a ghost town. Not only do the people that work at GM depend on those wages, but we have very small factories that make parts for GM all across the state. I am not aware of anybody working at GM making $15 an hour. I know people that have recently hired in, and they are not making $15 an hour. That was a short time when they went to the two-tiered system, and they have done away with it. I said it before, I'm 100% union, 100% UAW, and I make no apologies. It is the union that made the middle class. It is the union that gave us the 40-hour work week. It is the union that gave us the right to negotiate for higher wages. And I am proud as hell that we have gotten rid of the right to work. What we need to do is, so that we don't have our children in $15 an hour jobs in the next 10 years, is we need to make darn sure that our educational system is preparing them for the jobs. Because let me tell you, the kids in Okemos are getting prepared, the kids in East Lansing are getting prepared, and the kids in Lansing deserve to be prepared also. It's a multi-pronged issue. We need to be prepared for it, and I will negotiate developments as they come, but I will never turn away good union jobs that will support our entire community. As far as parking lots go, I detest surface parking lots. They are a waste of land, a waste of energy, and everything else, but I support GM.
I just want to say real quick that GM and the UAW are not the same thing. I support union solidarity all day long.
Yeah, and so that was actually part of the point I was going to make. I'll be brief, believe it or not. Absolutely, we'll stand up, right? One of the things, Jerry, is that we have to recognize that whether it be GM, whether it be Sparrow, whether it be the state of Michigan, whether it be McLaren, whether it be the insurance sector here in the city of Lansing, these are our major employers. And we have to absolutely work in earnest with them to ensure that we are not only supporting the jobs that are in place, but that we are, that they're growing. right? And that we are providing, again, opportunity for the folks right here in the city of Lansing. That being said, one of the things that I am proud of in terms of my time on council is when anything has come our way, whether it be a special land use consideration, whether it be a 425 agreement with an adjacent community, whether it be an economic incentive, I have tried, along with several of my colleagues on council, to ensure that we are getting the absolute best return for our neighborhoods, for our citizens, for our workers, for our tax base, and the list goes on. And so I will continue that work in earnest. I absolutely am intimately aware of some of the issues with regard to GM. We certainly need to, again, as we work in earnest with them, hold them accountable. And I believe that we can do that if we work collectively and collaboratively. Thank you.
That's it. We're going down a messy road here, handing the mic back.
I just everybody has said something about the UAW and the unions. I want to be clear that I support our union workers because I am an actual dues-paying UAW member, and I have been. I'm very proud of that, and I will stand next to my union brothers and sisters, no matter what.
This isn't about the unions or whether we're against the unions or for it. The simple fact is GM is benefiting from this community and from this city just as much as we're benefiting from them. And so anytime a business comes to the city, they see opportunity, they see money. And so when we go into these rooms and try to negotiate with them, why do we set the bar so low? Why don't we ask for what the community wants? And so that's all I'm saying. I support unions. I'm 100% for them. But GM benefits from this community just as much as we benefit from them. They need us just as much as we need them. And so it has to be fair across the board.
Thank you, Jerry, for elaborating on that, because I was thinking the same thing the whole time. Because I think that, and I appreciate everybody's answer, but I think that when we say GM, we immediately think of our uncle, our cousin, our brother that works there. And it's not that, because their union is also fighting that GM to get their right funding and to get their, that tiered system that you talked about. Like, I remember when I hired into the fire department, we were on a tiered system. And so I would hire in and do the exact same work that other people were doing and get less insurance benefits. My wife could no longer be covered under me, even though I was bringing cancer home every day. I'm like the old guard who didn't want anything to change because they had it all, were fighting against me. So therefore, the union aspect, and I appreciate everybody being a union, because I agree with the unions also. But at the end of the day, it's not them. It's the big corporation of GM. And I can say that I actually lived on Genesee, and I can't remember what the cross street was, but it's right there by Fisher Body Plant. And then on the other side of our street, literally, we were backed up to that big parking lot that you guys were talking about that's unsafe. And we had no idea how dangerous it was, that parking lot was. I had no idea. And we lived there for 2 years. I remember seeing in our basement, we had seepage every time it rained, and we had like this black mold, and we didn't know anything about it. And I can say this, and I've also said this very publicly. My wife and I both have had sicknesses and illnesses since that point. How it became the baby, she got lupus in 2015, 6 months after we lived in that building. I have no idea. How is it I went through what I went through after that? We have no idea. I'm sure GM would never stand on that, no matter how many, investigatories they put into whether or not that made people sick or not. So that's a real concern. I appreciate the question as well. Next up.
Hi, thanks for being here today. I know that we like anything on. Let me start over. Thank you for being here today. I know that it takes a lot of courage, energy, time, emotional, all of this to show up, to do what you're doing, to campaign, to actually pay attention. And I also want to emphasize and uplift a comment I heard made, I think, by Councilmember Cost about, it's who I'm representing, the voices that elected me. And so my question is in relation to that. Can you talk about, just briefly, you don't have to remember the people's names or anything, but briefly about a recent public comment you heard made at a council meeting and why it mattered to you? And if you are in a position, whether in whatever hat you wear, to have done something about that comment, can you also add on to that too? So it's kind of a multi-layer question here, but the shortest answer is talk about a public comment that yeah, just being mindful of time. Let's stick to the first part. I'm seeing the time. So let's talk about a public comment recently that you heard at City Council and why it mattered to you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Perfect question. So, public comment you heard, whether or not you were sitting on the dais or not, and then what you would have done in response to whatever they were saying. Sound good? 2 minutes, and I'm going to stick firm on it because we're running out of time here. Let's start with
A public comment that I heard that has made a difference to me. A public comment that I heard was a woman who is actually on the Board of Education. And she was talking about the deplorable conditions of her home. And followed by that was another woman who was losing her home because she couldn't get the proper funding she needed to pay her rent. And both of these situations, one was dealing with market rate housing and one was dealing with affordable housing. And what came to me is how much there is such a disconnect with the city government and the actual housing problems of the people in the city. This poor woman has had to live with her friends, her family, put her stuff in storage. This other woman, somebody actually paid her rent for her so that she could go forward and live. And I think those just tore at my heart because I can't imagine in 3 weeks losing my home because it's the property owner let it go to red tag, I had to leave, or because the agencies that were supposed to help me failed. So I think that really moved me. And what I would do is I would ensure that I get with the councilman Hussein and Cost and really double down on these red tags and really go after these property owners and make sure that the agencies we're giving money to are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Great, thank you. There have been a few public comments recently from individuals who are speaking at City Council representing Nation Outside. I believe in a nutshell, from what I understand, and I wasn't familiar with this organization until I heard them speak out at a City Council meeting. Basically, people who have committed crimes, serve their sentence, and now are re-entering the city as citizens, regular citizens, just like everyone else, are having a horrible time finding housing. There's a laundry list of things that they have barriers against them: housing, jobs, you name it. Can't get a loan, can't get money, can't get a place to live. It's very difficult for people who are coming out of the court system, the jails, prison, whatever it was. And having worked for the courts for so long, I've seen those barriers in play in real time. I was a court clerk. I was taking notes during sentencings, arraignments, pleas, and time and time again, you would see people who ended up back in court after they have served their time, they're on probation, doing what they can do to make it out of the system, but they can't get enough money to go in and do their drops or pay their fees on time. And so it's another violation and another violation and another violation, and those really rack up. What I could do about it is, connect with our district court. See, is there a bridge there? Is there a way that we can work with people who have paid their debt, serving their sentence? How can we help them thrive? Because sometimes it is a small snag that really keeps them in this cycle and keeps them going back to court with fines that are compounding. And it's very difficult to get out of that space and have a stable life after that. And so that's what I would do as a council member.
So besides Jody and Nicholas Zandy, I've been to more city council meetings than the rest of my opponents combined. And that's just the truth. And so one of the meetings that I went to, I saw these two individuals, and they were trying to get licensed in order to sell food. And they couldn't do that because the city said they lied or they didn't disclose this. It was some petty stuff. And I went up there and I said something. I said, hey, what do you guys want these people to do? How do you guys want these people to live? They apply for a house, they get denied. They apply for a job, they get denied. Now they think outside the box and they start up their own business. And we're still making it hard for them to get certified or get licensed. So I asked them straight up, what do you guys want these people to do? And that's one thing that I've noticed in this country is that there's no plan for people returning from prison. We want these people to go back. We want these people to commit crime rather than creating programs and rather than opening doors for these people so they can contribute to society. So what would I do? I would advocate for them. I would advocate for them just like I have been without being on city council. I'm always advocating for the community. I don't get paid. I show up every meeting speaking for this community because I love this community. I'm committed to this community. I'm invested in this community. And that's what we need. We need that kind of leadership, somebody who's going to advocate for people and stand up with people and bring solutions to the table. Thank you.
The one that comes to my mind actually was just 2 council meetings ago, I believe. The gentleman's name was David, and he brought up affordable housing and how his rent was getting jacked up, and how we actually in the city don't have a lot of zoning for multi-unit apartments. And that kind of actually shocked me. I wasn't that aware that the zoning was so jacked up in the city that we don't have the ability to make those multi-unit apartments. But not only that, I was concerned about the fact that he was talking about how his rent got so jacked on the 600 block there that he feels like he's not going to be able to live there anymore. And that directly affects what my platform is, right? I want to see this city be bustling. I want people to live on the Michigan Ave corridor downtown on 600 Ave and be walking around at night and make us look like we're a bustling city, have people be able to afford to live there, but also utilize everything that's in that area. So that was something that really struck me really hard, and it really made me realize that that's something I need to look into, especially if I got elected. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You know, until you get on council, you don't know how incredibly hard it is to hear people like Rosalind Williams talk about Autumn Ridge and then get completely ignored by the administration after she publicly commented. It's incredibly difficult not to cry in front of other people. I have to go to my office and do it because that was hard. That was hard. I still talk to her to this day. And Autumn Ridge is still operating illegally. That was hard to hear. But what really sticks out in the last few weeks is a certain slumlord here up in the First Ward. He owns 30 properties. His name is Christian. And I have been dealing with him for a year. He came down to speak publicly. He wanted leniency from city council because he owed back taxes and couldn't get rental certificates on his properties, which are shitholes. Excuse my language, but they're bad. So he had the audacity to come down there and ask us for a break when he's not giving his folks a break. He has people living in a house. There's a trailer parked in that driveway because those people had to move out of a different house that he had because it got red tagged. And a friend of mine just went and toured a house at 916 Cleveland. They had put up for sale. She videotaped it. It was disgusting. There were bugs in there. So he came up and he asked for leniency. I immediately after the meeting went to Carol Wood and I said, do not even entertain this at all. This guy is a bad actor. In fact, what did I do this last weekend? I've called on our city attorney to take him to court and make him a nuisance landlord and take away his properties. He cannot take care of his properties anymore, and he had the audacity to come in front of city council. That's not going to happen if I remain on council. Those guys are not going to get a free pass anymore. I'm tired of it.
I'd say, I've been on to council meetings probably far more than most of the other candidates here. And I've spoke public comment several times myself. The public comment that actually had the biggest impact on me personally was really not one of my own. It was from someone at that one council meeting. I didn't plan to really speak on much that meeting because the only thing that really came to mind was the whole Consumers Energy getting a tax incentive for development, which I'm like, I'm pretty sure they got enough money for that. But when someone spoke about about a property where it burned down and a teenager who was 17 years old, by the way, so probably a junior in high school, died. All because that property they didn't even bother to install a smoke detector to warn him on time. And it was specifically a landlord property, and hearing that absolutely broke me. Like, I knew several landlords were problematic, but I didn't know it was that bad. It really angered me to no end, and I was on the verge of crying at that point. I normally don't cry all that much, but that actually really made me upset. And you can just hear me speaking around the top of my lungs that I'm still pretty much triggered from hearing about that, and I still cringe even speaking about it. And this shows that there needs to be a proper litmus test for those who want to become landlords, and there needs to be a better enforced mandate that all properties, whether they're owned by landlords or not, have to have smoke detectors in order to prevent situations like this from happening ever again, because we cannot let this situation continue again.
Yeah. So first, folks, when you do attend a city council meeting, or you're able to view the dais as part of a city council meeting, I would highly encourage you to pay attention to who is actually listening. The minimum standard should be folks listening, paying attention, caring, considering what you all are bringing to essentially this body. We work for you. We represent you. That being said, there's a unique community in Southwest Lansing. It's positioned in the city of Lansing, but it's also positioned in Eaton County. And they very proudly refer to themselves as the Lansing Eaton Neighborhood Organization. In any event, about 7 years ago, when I came on the council, it was very clear after knocking doors, attending their neighborhood meetings, getting engaged in that community, that they felt underrepresented in what is, again, a very underrepresented part of town. So we got to work. Not only our partners in Southwest Lansing, but our local partners, partners with the city of Lansing. We got to work, and we've done a number of things in that neighborhood. One issue that they brought forward was their infrastructure. So we took the unique aspect that they were paying into 2 millages essentially, and we set up a program called a street demonstration program. In over 10 years, we're about in year 5, we're looking at actually improving all 8.1 miles of their road. And as we do that, what we're looking to do is to actually track property values, track potential improvements in public safety, and we're hoping we can actually use that as an argument to the state to actually improve and enhance statutory revenue sharing with municipalities. We've worked with departments of neighborhoods and citizen engagement on everything from neighborhood signs to sign toppers. We've worked with the Parks Department with advocacy. We've placed new playgrounds in their park, new tree plantings. We've improved infrastructure within their park. We are actually working with a local developer on a local shopping plaza, or I should say a plaza that's adjacent to their neighborhood that has been a nuisance for an incredibly long time, and we are close to bringing that project across the goal line. That being said, at a recent council meeting, an individual came up and said that, hey, my name is, and I am from that neighborhood over there that nobody ever pays attention to. As a city council person, it would have been easy for me to say, what is she talking about? We have worked incredibly hard and we've done a number of things. What I heard was an individual that still feels unseen, underrepresented, unheard, and not supported again in their neighborhood. And so my job as a city council person is to get in there, to knock doors more vigorously than I ever have, to listen to them, to listen to their concerns, and then to get with our partners and make action happen. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, you guys. So we're at 9 o'clock, and I'm sure Jerry wants to get us out of here. So, okay. We'll go as long as you guys have questions. So, or as long as they're willing to stay. Question up here.
Thanks, Mike. LPD is, I know for a fact that back in the day, they would run 30 plus officers on average each shift. That's a lot of officers. And it's my understanding that you're down to what, 7 per shift roughly right now? Where are you going to get the money for training and more officers? And how would you lure these officers to come and work for the city for less pay than, say, Grand Rapids or East Lansing or MSU DPS. And the same goes for the fire department. So that's the question.
So question is, first of all, staffing limits, because I know that at one point in time there were a lot of officers on, and then now there's not a lot. So, and then how do you entice them in? So I'm gonna give this straight to Adam, because that's like, I just wanted to hear you speak on it. I want to hear you speak on it.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. I think at our peak, we're at about 302 officers here in the city of Lansing, which means when you look at North and South Lansing, we were running about 32 officers per shift. We are down to anywhere from 8 to 16, which is a quarter to a half of what we were at with our peak. And we are at about 211 positions funded. We know in terms of best practices, we really need to be up around 270. That being said, there's a number of things that we need to do as a city. We have been building that back over the years. We were at a low of, at one point, funded 186 positions. So you're looking at about 25 positions that have been added on. Some of that initially through grant funding that we then supported through general fund, and some of that initially supported through general fund, and we've continued to support that through general fund. Obviously, when we look at our police department, we're also looking at the way we police. We're looking at the divisions. We're looking at the staffing within the divisions. We're growing our community police officers division. But again, we need to make sure that we're growing our tax base. We need to make sure that we have a healthy, again, tax base in order to actually be able to continue to add funded positions, but positions that make sense. We are woefully, a lot of times we think about patrol. We also need to take a look at, as an example, special operations. We have a detective division, as an example, that is scrambling. Okay, and unfortunately, because they're not as visible and they're not necessarily as engaged on a daily basis with the community, people don't see that. So we need to address that aspect as well. We need to continue to support our capital city labor program as they continue to negotiate good contracts with the city of Lansing. We need to work with them in earnest to make sure that our officers are paid well, that they're well compensated, that their fringe benefit package is more than competitive. And on my time on council, we have been doing that, but we certainly know there's more work to do. Thank you.
So the thing is about like with policing, while I do think policing is important, and that's why I don't think abolishing the police is really the best idea. However, whether or not we have more or less officers, I don't know if that actually solves most of these issues, because we could have all the police officers in the world and we would still have crime increasing in certain parts of the city. And to say this, to paraphrase what Farhan said earlier, police don't really prevent crime; they respond to it. And sometimes with what we've got, a lot of them aren't really great at doing that either, and they don't really catch the actual criminals. And so I feel like just more police officers, I don't know if that fully solves the issue. I think that officers should be more select. I know this sounds a little bit weird, but we need to look at communities that are actually ravaged by violent crime, and maybe their police should be involved. But when it's more petty thefts, I don't know if police really needs to be involved in those situations. So in saying that, I don't know if excessive spending for police, as much as that whole debate has been thrown out of the water, I don't know if we should just keep increasing their funds, because it's just, we've been doing that for several years, and I think that there needs to be a serious cap on that, so that we can spend more on maybe other departments to make our city more livable, and also as another way of preventing crimes from springing up in the first place.
Thanks for the question, Brian. This is what I would say. We are short police, fire. We're going to be short 31 in the fire department come October, and public service. So something that was a priority for myself and Adam was this last budget. We took $300,000, the ARPA dollar, interest that was earned on some of that money and set it for bonuses for those 3 departments because we don't have staff. We don't have enough people. So we had the storm come through. They came right through here. It took 3 weeks because we did it in-house to clean. We didn't have enough. We were pulling people off the sewage plant to come out here. So we're short-staffed. It's not just the police, it's all the departments. But then it's also looking how we are paying the police officers that are the starting wage, not only for cops, but our public service and fire. It's low. Secondly, looking at the way that we're policing. We have a lot of, it almost feels militaristic in ways, and we need less of that and more of the community police officer. We've got 12 different community police zones. I think that they are full or close to full on all those positions. Those people are key to community involvement. I see them out in the community talking, showing up at community events. I believe that we need to expand that as we hire more officers to 20 neighborhood cops and divide the city up even more. So each neighborhood has someone they can reach out to that they trust, that they have an open relationship with. That's not going to prevent all the crime. But I keep hearing, well, you get the small stuff, the big stuff will fall through. We can't. We don't have the staff. We don't have the ability to do it. We're putting out fires. We're acting reactively instead of proactively. We need to flip the narrative on all 3 of those departments and start being proactive.
I know firsthand, my husband is a retired police officer. He did 31 years with the state police. It is intense. It is grueling. It takes a toll on the entire family. But the respect is no longer there for police officers. And in fact, my husband said if he were to have to make that choice today, he would not make that choice just because of the lack of support from the communities. We all have to acknowledge that we have some bad police officers. God knows we do. And they should be held to the highest level of the law because they should be the example, not the exception. But for the rest of the first responders, it is unfair. And nobody wants to go into a job where they are not respected. This is the exact same reason we can't get educators, because we don't pay them, we don't respect them, and we don't give them what they deserve. So in order for us to attract more police officers, this is a national problem. Nobody wants to go into the field, and I don't blame them. My husband his partner was shot. He was run over by a car. I mean, it goes on and on, all while trying to protect the public. We need to respect the position. We need to make our package competitive, and we do need to increase community policing. But until we can fill the other positions, they are called off their assignment to deal with the other issues. And as far as our firefighters go, we have to recruit more. We have to find more money to send more of them to paramedic school. We just have to do better with our first responders, period.
Great, got the timer. Thanks for the question. So I think that, all of these are good answers, and they're all, you're hitting it at all fronts. I believe there's is it $5,000 signing bonus that's currently out there offered to recruit police officers. Battle Creek is offering $10,000. We're not as competitive as we should be if we're going to keep that model of offering a signing bonus, bringing new recruits in, because as I understand it, we have classes graduating regularly and they're not staying in this community. They're going to outside communities that are simply paying more. So let's think outside the box. What can we offer people that is not incentivized by money? Sure, money is helpful. It's very helpful. Are there opportunities for career and advancement and growth here in the city? Are there educational opportunities amongst the different ranks of police officers? When you're new to the workforce, what can you become? How can the City of Lansing Police Department help you get there? If you stay here with us, this is what you can achieve with us. There have to be solutions that don't revolve specifically around that signing bonus. Wages should increase. I agree. Union negotiations are key to that. It is one of the most dangerous jobs in our community, being a police officer. More police in the community, of course, would grow trust with the neighborhoods. But when we're talking about recruiting, I think that we have to find incentives aside from that paycheck, because the money simply hasn't been there. It hasn't been allocated appropriately to boost those funds. But there needs to be a way to provide that additional incentive.
Retirements. Where it's at.
Absolutely. I don't personally believe that funding is the issue here. The police department gets about $50 million. That's a lot of money. And so the biggest issue we have in this city is lack of vision and lack of leadership. The 5 people that got shot at Logan Square, where was our police chief? Why didn't he give us any briefing? Where is our mayor? Why didn't he give us any briefing? What is the strategy in this city when it comes to solving crime? What is it? Nobody knows. The mayor doesn't know, city council doesn't know, the police chief doesn't know. So just hiring a bunch of new 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds is not going to solve our problems. That's just the truth. What we need to do in order to tackle this issue is, one, have a strategy in place. We need to figure out how we're going to deal with this. And the only way to do that is bring the community together, especially the hot spots where we know crime is taking place. We need to ask those communities, what do you need from the city? Because not what works for the first ward is not going to work for the second ward or the third ward or the fourth ward. So we can't just say we're going to just do this whole thing for the city, because it's not going to work. And so I believe we need new leadership. We need new vision. We can hire more people. That's fine. I'm fine with that. However, if there's no strategy, all you're going to see is just a bunch of police officers just driving across the city, wasting gas, and that's it. We have close to 100 unsolved murder cases in this city, homicides that have not been solved in this city. We have killers walking amongst us in this city. When are they going to be held accountable? We have mothers still seeking justice for their loved ones. Why is that? Why is it taking 5 to 10 years to solve a case in the city? That's because there's no vision, there's no leadership. And that's why we're having the issues that we're having today. It ain't just happened overnight. It's been going on for years.
For me, I'm going to come back to fix the small things, and the big things fix themselves, right? So as soon as you start ignoring the petty thefts, the retail frauds, everything like that, and you just let people get away with it, you don't respond to those kinds of things, they're like, well, they don't care, so I can just go on and continue to either do that or, elevate or whatever. So that's one of the main issues I see. The other thing, too, is that you don't want to take any money away from them, right? Because to sit there and try to tell our local police force that you need to do more with less is just going to put more stress on them. And then you're going to see more mistakes, and you're going to see more shootings, and you're going to see things that we don't want to see in this city. So it's this fine balance of, okay, I know we offer to send them to school and everything if they come to work for us. And then I'm pretty sure it's a 3-year, they have to stay with the city or something like that. And if we don't, that's something that we should 100% do. And then again, incentivization, right? So how do you get them to stay after that? Do we offer them benefits earlier than most, or do we increase that signing bonus? I don't know what the right answer is. What I do know is that Lansing is dangerous, and that these people that do come here to either get their schooling or get that signing bonus and work for those couple years, they want to leave as soon as possible. And so the best way to do that is to make sure that we make Lansing safer.
I think that was everybody on that question. I had a thought. Real quickly, what you just said about the incentivizing people from the city, that's how I got into the fire department. Hired in with just a GED, absolutely no training. They brought me in. Unfortunately, they didn't fix the racism inside of there, so here we are. But anyways, I was a firefighter there because they brought me in that way. So that may be a way to fix that. I think we have, again, I asked Adam, 18 positions that aren't filled yet. So we could just be filling those positions with those folks. My time's up. All right, next question. And so we got to narrow this up. So how many more questions do we have as of right now? 2? Okay, perfect. We're going to stop there. All right, go ahead, Rob.
So anyway, he just said my name. I'm Rob. I actually didn't have a big question at first, but then I came up here and heard a lot of stuff, so I'm probably about to word vomit real quick, and I apologize. But I'm about to jump back all the way back to where Jerry came up here because I saw emotion come out during Jerry's question. And actually, I kind of liked it because I seen it trigger some stuff in a few people, right? The UAW support hit y'all real hard, right? That's great. That's great and all, but just like they said, GM and UAW is two different bodies, right? Are you looking at that question as GM, the smoke and mirrors, or are you looking at the union? You all looked at the union. That's fine. I get it. Support the union. But are you supporting the union when it comes to GM subcontractors? Those are the $15 jobs, right? The Alliance, Android, Bridgewater, what's the other? There are a bunch of different sub companies that come in here, pay people $15 an hour. Half their staff is temp, right? Those are the people that need your support. Those are the people that need your help, because those are the $15 jobs that are not providing living wages, right? Those are the places that the kids that we were talking about earlier go to after school because they weren't ready for college. They don't have trade school. They go into these temp jobs, then get laid off, and then what? They end up being the people that fall victim to needing to steal, right? Committing those crimes, that mental health issue, right? There's nothing left for them to do. So if we could address those issues in those subsidiary companies, you probably will see a better living wage in the city, better health in this city, better wealth in this city. Everything you've all addressed as far as bringing this city up will be addressed if you start touching on those little things like you keep saying. That's one of those little things. So, sir, if you're on council, I expect you to address that little thing. Where else were we going? Policing. We don't need more police, to be honest. We need to address the issues that require police. And as far as the police budget, they have the money. They're just spending on stupid shit. My bad. Why, if you only have 6 to 16 police on a shift, do you need a multi-million-dollar command bus that costs even more to maintain? It doesn't make sense, right? Sell it. Hell, sell it to some other police department, right? And then utilize that money to take care of the training and the staffing that you need, because that's pointless spending. Pointless spending is what's hurting the police department in this city. I think that's what he was getting at, but right? Kind of. So anyway, all of that said, that wasn't even my question. My question is for the 4 new people going to council. What have you been doing, or what are you doing to familiarize yourselves with the city ordinance and make sure that you understand your power, especially when it comes to your relationship to the mayor, your ability to question the mayor, refute the mayor, side with the mayor, or override him should you need to?
Great question. Oh, you ready to go? Trini, ready to go on this one?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I've been doing a ton of reading. I've been reading the ordinances. It takes time to get through them, but I'm taking my time to go through them so that I do understand that. I've been reading the charter. I do pay attention to city council meetings, and I understand that when you don't pay close attention, things just go through the motions. And I think that for a long time we had seen councils who had gone through the motions. Maybe there was a little conflict here and there, but by and large, I think that going through the motions again is where we got to the red tag crisis and things like that going on in the city. I was really proud to see council members, take some stands recently when it comes to budget, when it comes to oversight, when it comes to not just asking the first question, but asking the second, third, fourth, and fifth questions to get some real answers. And I think that's imperative that council members do that. I will do that if I'm elected. Ask the questions, because you can't just take everything at face value. You can evaluate an opinion all day, but maybe you're looking for a second opinion, and that should be okay. And I think that council has a responsibility to do that, to ask those tough questions, and have as much information as they can to move forward when dealing with other issues.
When it comes to the mayor, I will work with the administration, but I will not work for the administration. And that's a big difference. There needs to be checks and balances. City council needs to be independent from the mayor's office. It is our job to hold him accountable. It is our job to work with them, but we are not part of his cabinet. We are an elected official. Well, when I win, we're we're an elected official just like him, and so he can't fire us. We work for the people. And so as far as asking the tough questions, disagreeing with him, if he vetoes something, we have the power. The charter gives us the power to override that veto. It's just that simple. So we have to exercise our powers, and I will do that. I have proven that I will challenge the administration, that I will make things happen. I am not a yes man. That's why he hasn't endorsed me. That's why he hasn't given me his leadership fund money, and I don't need it. I'm working for the people. I'm working to represent the Lansing residents. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to go after that because it's going to be the same kind of echo chamber. But reading the charter, right, looking up historical examples of decisions that councils have made, and then really just sticking to my two big things, right, integrity and honesty. So and accountability, but that kind of goes along with all three of them. I preach those things, especially my integrity. It's one of the things that keeps me, that allows me to go to bed at night, honestly, because I don't feel like I've ever broken that in my entire life. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Having been on council for 8 years, I am acutely aware of the charter and the ordinances. In fact, I wrote some of those ordinances. But what I will say, as far as working with the mayor, I am sick to death of people asking, how will you work with the mayor? How about we ask, how will the mayor work with us? You know what? This is what needs to happen, because I'm tired of worrying about hurting somebody's feelings. I am an agitator. I make no apologies for it. I will always ask the questions, and I will always be blunt. And for me to have to dance around high elected officials' feelings is not what I have time for. I got called into the mayor's office because he heard I gossiped about him. Are you kidding me? I don't care. And I said, we're not having this conversation. We've got a serious job to do, and it needs to be done.
So if anyone is not aware of this, I handed the mayor the first override of his veto that he ever got. So I read the charter before I jumped on to do the job. And I appreciate the question, because it is a very big question. What does the charter say we do? Well, we're the legislative branch. It's right there in wording. We just had a discussion about the charter at City Council last week, 2 weeks ago, about what role the city attorney plays in an ethics complaint and bringing outside counsel if City Council, in fact, can bring the outside counsel, to which I quoted the section, which I think was, 306. I might be wrong on that. Chapter 3, 306. But it did say that in black and white. Because I've read the charter and I knew it was in there. We also can subpoena if we need to. And we have a right, which has been crushed by this administration, of asking any employee for a question and getting a response back to that question. They are told not to respond to us, and that's very frustrating.
I always think, considering that the city council is the legislative branch and the mayor is the executive branch, one, I don't think should have too much precedence over another. They need to be separate but equal branches. And the fact that the mayor just tends to abuse his power to make himself look more powerful than the city council and use unelected officials to justify his own beliefs, when those people weren't even elected by the people, they were appointed by the mayor. The thing is, I'll just say it, the city council was elected and they do have a right to subpoena him. I mean, just as, let's say, what happened with Brandon Betts when he had that nasty communication with Mr. Lynn here about having, quote unquote, less power in the city council went right on it and was like, yeah, we got to censure him about it. And eventually he did resign and he did yield. So I'll say that. And so I think the same needs to be done with our mayor. And I don't know if I should be working with someone who's been proven to be pretty corrupt.
So I don't think the question was for me, frankly. Yeah. So because of the time, I'm going to pass. The only thing I will say is I certainly appreciate the work. I have seen the work from the folks up here to ensure that they are ready to hit the ground running. I think the key is though, Rob, that folks also need to understand that when they run, there's a lot of requisite work that goes into being prepared for the position. But the work is 10 times, right, when you actually get in the position. And what we need from our city council members are folks that put in the work each and every day, that understand separation of powers, that understand checks and balances, that work with the mayor but not for the mayor, that continue to learn on the job so that they can be the absolute most effective council members for this community. And so hard work, yes, campaigning, just wait, folks. There's a whole lot more in store.
Hi, my name is Max. I was just wondering if any of the candidates have any plans to make sure Lansing is all inclusive and that we don't have any legislature like we're seeing in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill and like the transphobia and the homophobia that's going on there. And yeah.
So the question is about inclusivity and whether or not the council has plans to address it.
Yeah, stuff like that. No, in a positive.
In a positive way.
Inclusive, good. Yeah.
More up of inclusivity. Just real quickly, I think we could just do a up or down. Does everybody have plans on addressing inclusivity in a positive way? Perfect. One last question. Did you have a question, my man? Can you come up here real quick? Because that's going to be our last one. I apologize.
Hello. Hey, real quick. Lavelle Williams. I just kind of wanted to address, you guys were talking about housing, you were talking about education, and he was saying, take care of the little things and the big things get taken care of. I was wondering if you guys had any plans for dealing with homelessness in the city. Even the Fledge itself has had to deal with a lot of the things that the city are supposed to take care of. This past winter, they had to become a warming center because a bunch of places were shut down and weren't letting people in. I myself ended up having to use this facility one night just because I was stuck in downtown and couldn't get back to my house because the buses don't run that late. So I was wondering if you guys were going to deal with whether or not the homeless are going to have a safe haven in the city somewhere where they would be able to actually congregate and not be harassed by police or anybody living in the area. And also if you guys are if you actually had a plan to deal with people returning from homelessness into working condition and housing or anything.
That's a beautiful question to end on, right? So I think that it deserves more than just a minute, but I'm gonna say 2 minutes. You don't have to take the whole time, but homelessness is something we haven't spoken on up to this point. So take your time in 2 minutes. If you need all of it, take it, and that'll be our last question of the day. Jody has to go first.
I think out of everybody that's running, I have the absolute most experience with the homeless in our community. I am under the bridges, I am on the streets, I am in the shelters. And in fact, one of my mentors is here, Chris Pruitt. He was the one that got me started and taught me a lot of what I know, and I've been able to go forward. Thank you, Chris. What I am advocating for right now, because I have had so many situations where we have people camping and the police come, tear down their tents and throw away all of their property, which includes their documentation, their medications, and everything that is dear to them. What I am proposing is that we study having a couple city-sanctioned tent cities, not in the parks, but that we find a place where people can go and be safe and know that their property will be there. And then we have a point place where we can start services for them, because they are such a transient population. When they're here today, they're gone tomorrow, and we can't help them through that process. I talked to Kim Coleman. She's also thinking of maybe a place where people could park overnight because they actually live in their vehicles. Shelters are not for everyone, and you need to know that. As far as housing them, not everybody can go from a tent to a house. There has to be a mentoring process, which is what I do with several individuals. I mentor them. I help them through the agencies. I help them learn how to cook, how to shop, how to make sure that they're going to their doctor appointments. And I even set some up with payees. So this is a huge problem. It's something that I am deeply concerned about, because we must scaffold all of our residents to the best life that they can possibly have, which is why I'm on the Ingham Community Health Centers Board. They deserve health care. They deserve everything that we can offer them. I have a lot of ideas, and I will bring them with me to City Council.
So first, I want to touch on something you said about warm and cooling centers. First, the letter that they sent Jerry from zoning was wrong. It was passive aggressive and it was wrong. He was helping people during this last code blue, because I came here and brought toilet paper, and the fire department had just come here and cleared the building and gave him a couple smoke detectors. So I'm sorry, because we didn't know about that letter, and you were very upset one day about that, and that's wrong. We should have talked to you like a human being and moved forward. So as far as the warm and cooling centers, we keep having that a budget priority. It never happens. So the amendments that I offered, we put together with Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Spitzley, and we funded the 4 community centers for warming and cooling centers. And we took that money out of the mayor's salary in his office, his $1.2 million. So right now he has the money for warming cooling centers. Additionally, the state will be giving us $800,000 October 1st for a centralized, as I understand it, warming cooling center. So that is that portion of it. As far as the homelessness portion of it, I have to say Jody has been a mentor. As one of the residents of the first ward, she's told me a lot and taken me to these places and showed me, the situations that they're in. The idea of having these encampments where people are safe, there's actually a name, and I read the studies. It's first step housing. It's where we can actually get services to these folks. It's the first step towards housing, and we've got to do it, because what we're doing right now isn't working. We're finding bodies underneath bridges, ODs, things like that. That is unacceptable.
Okay, great, thanks. I am not the authority, nor have I had experience working directly with the homeless population in Lansing. I can only say that I have heard different ideas about how to work with the homeless population in the city. I do think that transitionary steps that you're taking to get into housing would be helpful. I would work with anyone who would help support that. I also think that we have organizations here in the city, such as the Fledge, such as our community centers, where we can work with the homeless population to work to get them resources that they so badly need, and continue to uplift them until they can get to the point where they are in stable housing. And about the letter, I just want to say this really quickly, because when I was in the podcast interview with Mike and Erica, I mentioned the letter that the Fledge received from the city. And I read later on, there was a comment that said, why does the Fledge have to be responsible? I don't think the Fledge has to be responsible. I think that there should be a short-term solution that involves the city, because the Fledge was obviously filling in a gap there that the city couldn't meet. You were bringing people in, you were saving lives. There should be a mechanism to say, thank you for being a community partner, instead of sending you a letter that, dings you or discredits you in some way. You have this building. It is properly zoned. You have the capacity to fill it with a specific number of people, and you're saving lives by bringing them in and doing that and filling that gap. So thank you for doing that. I think that the city should work with organizations such as the Fledge in more of a partnership, rather than saying, you can't do that, that's against the rule, because ultimately it helps save lives.
So for years, the city has believed in two things in order to address the homelessness crisis that we see in the city. One, arrest people. Two, push them as far away as we can so the public does not see them. And that has not helped the situation. It has increased the homelessness that we see in the city. So when we're talking about the Fledge, let's talk about the Fledge. The reason why Jerry did what he did was because Andy Shore and this city has failed to do its job. That's why he stepped in. And instead of saying thank you, they sent him a letter threatening him. And that's what they do across the city. They punish people who try to help the poor or the needed. And that is something that I am totally against. When it comes to homelessness, you know, I was born in a refugee camp. My family and I used to share tents. And I understand the importance of housing. I believe housing is a human right. When you address housing, you address the many issues that are taking place in the city, whether it's crime, whether it's health, whether it's the well-being of the community. You address all of that with just solving one crisis, one problem. And so I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of talking. It's time for action. And lastly, I went to one city council meeting and there was this lady, she was the executive director of Holy Cross. This lady went up and said, "We are housing the most undesirable people in this city." Think about that. It is that kind of attitude, it is that kind of mindset, it is that kind of leadership that harms people more than helping people. And so we got to do better as a community, and I will fight for our homeless population. Thank you.
I think it would be remiss to say that there isn't mental health issues that correspond with homelessness every now and then, right? And there will always be people that choose to live the transient lifestyle as well. So really the goal is to focus on the people that want the help 100%. They're looking for that out, right? And so I really don't think if someone, let's say, went to Sparrow, right? They needed a meal, a warm place to stay that night. And they said, "Hey, you know what? I'm ready for help. Today is the day." And we said, "Oh, well, we got this awesome tent camp for you." I don't really think that's the right way to go about it. I think one of the right ways to go about it would be to make sure that we have, you know, some sort of facility kind of like this where we could actually house them in those areas, small apartment-like, quick turnaround, right? I know there's like the VA has apartments that they offer to veterans that are having a rough time with their rent and everything too, something along that line. It wouldn't be very hard. They'd be easy to turn around once the people got on their feet, and we could make sure that they have the best start. Social workers there every day, people that teach them how to do the daily things that life requires. That would really be my address for it.
Okay. So what I'm going to say about this whole homeless issue, it ties back to why I would have a hard time working with the mayor. And that has to do with the fact that the city council president proposed a budget to him, and he initially accepted it. And Ryan Cost even amended it to include the homeless shelter thing. And guess what? He vetoed it, basically turning his back on the city council. So that's why I find it hard to work with him, because I don't know if he could work with us on that whole thing. And to say this about homelessness, to say that homelessness is a choice, that's just wrong on so many levels. People don't choose to be homeless. It's because they've been rejected by society and the fact that they cannot afford housing. And considering the red tag issue, there's not enough safe housing for them. And that's why I say again, landlords should be held accountable, especially when it comes to if their properties are deteriorating to the point where people can't live in them, and to the point where people actually become homeless because of that. And that's why we need to have actual that's why there needs to not only be litmus tests for landlords, there also needs to be actual homeless shelters, so that people, homeless people, can at least at least somewhat temporarily have safe places to live, not just a tent area that just seems like it was half baked. is the way I could say it in the safest way possible. So that's what I really need to say about the issue, and we need to actually be steadfast on this right now.
So I'm actually glad that I'm the last person answering this. And let me first say that I appreciate the question. I think any question that centers our most vulnerable is a question that has merit value and that we certainly need to wrap our arms around and work to answer. That being said, to lead effectively, you have to sometimes know that you don't have all the answers, that you need to at times convene meetings of people that are a heck of a lot smarter than you, a lot more versed, engaged, et cetera. And at times you need to follow. What we have, and the reason why I'm glad that I'm speaking last is I actually want to extend an invitation to the folks here that have some measure of expertise or experience with housing insecurity or homelessness. We actually, I think, recognized on council that we're dealing with a crisis. Homelessness, much like the state of Michigan and much like communities all throughout the country. I think we also recognized that we didn't necessarily have the expertise on council to begin with ordinance review, policy review, budget priorities, recommendations to our local, state, and federal partners. And so what we decided to do was create an ad hoc on homelessness. And what we have been doing over the past several months is we have actually been bringing in people such as Jody Washington, such as Mike Carl, such as some of our partners with the Ingham County Health Department. The list goes on and on and on. And we've been picking their brains. What is the issue that you are seeing on the front lines? What are the issues that we can actually address at the local level? And then what are those issues that we really need to hold folks accountable at the local, state, and federal level? And so we actually are working on curating that information. We're going to then put together a series of recommendations. These are actually due mid-September. And timely enough, we actually have our next meeting tomorrow, 3:30, 10th floor of City Hall. And so with that being said, I invite anybody to come out and to be a part of that conversation, to participate in that work. And certainly we hope that we can put forth recommendations and then actually act on those recommendations, at least those things that we can actually take care of here locally to improve the situation here in the city of Lansing with regards to our homeless population. Thank you.
All right, y'all. In clear Merica fashion, we went an hour over. What else did y'all expect? Erica had something else?
Yep,
real quick?
I have one question that is going to be extremely quick. This was a question that came in from the audience. And this is a very, very specific yes or no question for each candidate. So if you can just yes or no. If you're an at-large candidate, this applies to all wards. If you are a ward candidate, it applies to your ward or your potential ward. So the question is, would you support a 24-hour warming center in your ward?
That's kind of a hands up or down.
That's fine. They wanted to make sure it got asked.
A 24-hour warming center in your ward. Everybody said yes. Somebody wants to add to it?
So the only reason I wanted to say something was that we have to, when we started talking about a cooling and a warming center, and we started talking about it at a central location, I think we demonstrated our ignorance. We need accessibility and we need proximity. And so one of the things that Mr. Cost fought for, which I really appreciate, was funding so that we could start to see some of these in satellite locations throughout the community. So the answer should be emphatically yes.
All right. Right on. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you all for being here. I apologize for keeping y'all late, but I don't think you guys, I think you do understand how important this is to the people to get to hear you all. So appreciate you all for being here and all you all for coming. Make sure you check Merica 20 to Life out on Facebook so you guys can get more context and you guys can go watch all their candidate conversations. They all were a part of that. Go vote tomorrow and look for the next candidate conversation from our primary folks and endorsements coming out from Merica. Thank you.
We did stream this, so there are comments. So if y'all want to go
It
back
was
in,
streamed, that's
we
correct.
did not moderate comments tonight online, but there are a lot of comments, so I recommend reading them.
Oh yeah. Hope to talk to you and not about you. Peace.